Hello, Kelly.
Hello, Kathy. Oh my gosh, I have missed your face so much.
It's been forever.
I know.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to A Day in the Life, where we speak to the people and the companies that bring the magic to life in themed entertainment. And
So
today,
excited.
Kelly, you should tell everybody who we're speaking to today.
Okay, I'm so amped because I love this company, and these are some of the coolest people that we get to talk to today. So Ravenswood Studio, um, just beyond stoked. I don't even know. I don't even know if I can like contain it. I think every episode I'm like, oh, I'm so jazzed, but like so incredibly jazzed. We have four incredible folks. I don't know if we want to like do a drum
Bring
roll.
everyone in.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Would you like to introduce yourselves? Shall we start with Justin?
Studio.
You try that one more time, Justin. I think there was
Yeah, I'm the director of operations for Ravenswood Studio.
Hello.
Uh-oh.
It's me.
Oh, there we go. All right, and we'll kick it over to Nathan.
Mostly in metalwork here at Ravenswood Studio. Happy to share information with you guys and tell you what we do every day. It's pretty cool.
Let's kick it over to Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Kegel. I'm a project manager at Ravenswood Studio.
And then Rosie.
Hey, I'm Rosie Stewart, and I'm a scenic painter at Ravenswood Studio.
Gosh. I feel like I'm gonna be like this the whole show. So if I'm too close to your screens, I apologize ahead of time. Okay, so in our show today, this is first episode of season 2. We get just like literally hitting the ground running, like right into 2022. If you would, and I like it doesn't really matter the order that you want to go in. It doesn't have to be any specific thing. Y'all can throw it to whomever. But what is the? Can you kind of discuss your career journey, like getting to, like leading up to working at Ravenswood? Rosie, can I get you to go first?
Yeah, so okay. So I kind of had like a weird sideways way into doing this. I always really, like, as a kid, loved art and painting, and especially like puzzling and crafting and stuff. But it wasn't ever anything that I anticipated doing for a living. And so I went to school. I started out wanting to be a veterinary. So I went to college and I had a work study job, and I decided to apply at the scene shop in the theater because I wanted to learn how to build scenery. Because I thought it would be fun to build things. And then from there, they didn't have any painters, and I was like, well, I paint casually. And sort of became their de facto scenic painter and really, really liked it. And so then I scenic painted in college and on the side throughout college. And then when I moved to back to Chicago, I grew up here. I sent my resume to Ravenswood, and it ended up being a really good fit for me because it, I don't know, we get to do so many different things, and I really like the stability of like a 9 to 5 and working at a established company as opposed to freelancing. But I still get to paint and work with my hands. So yeah. And I've been here for a decade now.
Oh gosh. I feel like I need to talk to you for like hours and hours and hours. Sorry. Okay. So, Nathan, would you like to go next?
Happy to. I think going way back, I've always been a maker. I've always been interested in how things work, and always felt compelled to make things in whatever medium. So even as a young kid, building blocks were my thing. And I've been chasing that pretty steadily for 20 years. So much like Rosie, the scene shop at my college in the Berkshires offered me the opportunity to build, was the way I got my foot in the door to work with wood, to work with metal, to work with paint, to work with all these things through a broad exposure of things through theater. And I think as we dig deeper, you might find that a lot of our talent has that background in theater, which is really interesting. So have been working professionally in the industry since I was 18, and that's moved to Chicago in 2005. And started to hone in on what I wanted to really do. I think so. Yeah, it's got my start in college, really, professionally, but have just feel compelled to build things my entire life, and it's pretty straightforward, really.
That's awesome. Kathy also has some questions for you, like away from this. I don't know if you can see the private chat, but
Western
also,
Mass. All right. Where I went to, awesome. Yeah. So I went to UMass Amherst in the Berkshires, and that was a beautiful place to go to school and grow as a person, but also as a builder. And very transformative years of my life. That really was quite transformative for me. So Western Mass, UMass kind of thing. There you go. UMass Amherst Rovers. I love it. So yeah, I think builders in general. Oh man, I'm already going on a tangent. This was supposed to be about how I got my start, right? I think in general, what you're going to find is people feel compelled to do things here. And I think that the through line through everybody's stories here is like that regardless of where they started or how they started, there was a compelled feeling that I want to do this. I don't know why I want to do this yet, but it's like, oh, that could be interesting, or that's kind of cool, or however people describe it. There's a compelling feeling that gets a lot of people in this building out of bed every day, whether it's facilitating teams or whatever. And it's going to be interesting to hear everybody's takes on it, because we don't get to talk about this a lot. So I am jazzed. And if I'm talking too much, wave me down. So I appreciate you guys. I'll leave it to the next person.
do you want to go to Mary? I feel like Mary has things to say.
Oh, Mary has things to say for sure.
So my start at Ravenswood Studio was based on a road of desperation and serendipity. I had gotten a degree in sculpture, studio art major, and went down to Central Florida to work at a very famous theme park, and was hooked. I knew that that's what I wanted to do, but I also knew that I didn't want to be a frontline worker anymore. I wanted to work in the creative side of things. So I went back to school, got an interior design degree, really thought I was gonna then do the sensible thing and work for an architect. Horribly miserable, got fired, and then answered a Craigslist ad for an opening at Ravenswood for a receptionist / draftsperson. And what do you know if you don't win the career lottery sometimes? So that was pretty awesome.
It's probably the only time that anyone would be like, man, I am so glad I got fired.
Stings in the moment, but oftentimes it's just for the best.
All right, Justin.
All right. So I kind of share the theater through line with all of this. I grew up taking everything I could get my hands on apart and only getting a few of them back together early on. And the more of the things I was able to put back together, the more and more compelled I was to keep doing it. I went to school for theater design and technology, but my parents came from the school of career advice of make your kids be doctors or lawyers and such. So rather than being a cowboy, I ended up in theater. The thing that's always compelled me is bringing groups of people together. That's the thing I found most magnetic. And the cool thing about what we do here is we bring a group of people together, solve a bunch of problems, and then people get around it again later. My path to here has been through television and theater, touring environments, doing festivals and concerts. I worked for the Smithsonian in DC for about 6 years, helping them put on the Smithsonian Folklife Festival every summer. And then ultimately getting to Ravenswood came as a career hop that happened when I followed my partner here. She's a landscape architect and was just in town and out of work and needed a job and had started calling around and ended up interviewing here. And well, the rest is history. So it's small world connections all the way through as well. Every one of those turns is marked by somebody who made a phone call to somebody. I think that's something that we'll get into later, but is certainly part of the journey.
That is so awesome. So let's take a little bit of a pivot and start looking at what exactly Ravenswood does and a bit of a company overview, just so people can learn more about what you guys do.
Sure thing.
Uh,
If you want to throw up slides, I think we put together a couple of pretty pictures that can accompany what I'm talking about here. All right. So Ravenswood Studio, in a nutshell, was founded over 30 years ago. It was a couple guys in a garage-style operation, building sets for television commercials, theater, and more the scale of that grew. And so really Ravenswood started as a classic scenic studio, supporting theater and operas and television. And over time, as the maturity of the company increased and the professionalism increased, you can actually see an inverse relationship with how close we let the audience get. And eventually we found ourselves in museum spaces and live entertainment spaces and themed entertainment spaces. And now we invite people to get as close as they want to the things we build. So in theater, you've got the 30 or 50 foot rule. Everything has to look good from real far away. And the backside doesn't matter. And now every side matters, inside and out. It turns out that artifacts really care about their surroundings. So inside of cases matter, outside of cases matter. And then in the themed world, you want everything to be real. You don't want to pull away from the story. So the more and more that we lend detail and nuance, the more powerful and compelling our work. So Museums, traveling exhibitions, and themed experiences is really where we excel. You can see a lot of that on these pictures here, from those tentacles erupting up out of an office floor all the way down through Mythbusters over there, which was like a traveling experience where you got to step into the mindset of being a Mythbuster. Ravenswood itself is 100,000 square feet of fun, with about 70 people running around inside having all that fun. And we have an array of project managers, detailers, exec team, admin, all of that, who support a core of 45 really talented folks on the shop floor, with talents ranging from faux finishing all the way through brazing and everything else in between. There's CNC operators, printer operators, electronics gurus, molders, casters, sculptors, you name it. That skill set's probably hiding amongst our team.
That is so awesome. Like, just the level of finish that y'all get in your studio, thinking where it came from and like where you are now is just, it's just so amazing.
Thank you.
And like, you say like 30 years ago, and for a lot of people they're like, oh my God, that was so long ago. But like in the grand scheme of things, that was like yesterday. So the fact that you have grown the way you have is just a testament to the people. Sorry, I'm gonna.
Thanks, Kelly. It's really compelling because at the end of the day, we get to offer folks a place anywhere in that journey from idea to reality. And frankly, I see our job is to welcome you in wherever you want to be on that path, and then you join us. So our relationship in the ideal world is incredibly collaborative. And if you wanted to come to me, Kelly, and say, hey, I want to build this thing, then you're going to build it with us, because you're going to be part of the review process and the engineering process. You're going to approve our samples and make sure that the thing that you get is the thing that you want. When it turns to the projects where it's just press go and execute, we can rock those out. But the stuff that we really love, the stuff where we like to dig in, are the projects where the client's walking every step with us.
That's so cool. So, oh, yeah, Kathy brings up a good point. We don't want to leave the slides.
Leave more pictures on the table. No, there's so many good things. So yeah, this is kind of talking about that whole journey and that whole suite of services. I'm not going to read down the whole side of that slide to you. But basically, ideas are born and they work through some level of design phase. And when they get to Ravenswood Studio for the actual build side, we jump in at what we would consider like schematic design plus. So all of our detailers are great at taking an idea and taking a concept and bringing it all the way into a reality that can be made. And they get that on paper and communicate it in such a way that can be fabricated. So we got a metal shop and a carpentry shop and scenic art and specialty fabrication. And then you'll see that next line there is pre-construction consulting. And that's everything from, is this crazy? Can I turn off gravity here? Can you spray darkness out of a can? And those are the two things I'll say no to. I can't spray it out of a can, and I can't turn off gravity. But we will sure work with you to make whatever beautiful idea you have come to mind. And that's executed through all of those other processes that you see up there. So it's CAD work, it's design work, it's printing work, it's CNC, it's hitting goals even at the architectural level of hitting LEED certification and making sure that the materials we choose are appropriate for your sustainability goals, and that at the end of the day, we want you to keep our stuff forever. But if you decide that you don't want to anymore, that its footprint in the world as it makes its way back out as a resource is also as light as it can be. All right, I think our next piece here is kicking over into individual roles. And I know that all of us have a lot to say about our various roles and responsibilities. Kelly, where do you want us to start?
Well, I mean, can we start with you and then we'll just.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to kind of walk through each of those steps, I kind of gave the overview. I would like to kick it to individuals to talk about it, and then I can loop the process back together again at the end.
Perfect.
And I would say when most folks come through the door, one of the first people they meet is our project managers. So perhaps Mary can take it away from us here. And
I think you're on mute.
You're muted.
Oh, it's all good. I do it like all the time.
We've been Zooming for like 2 years now and still mute. Okay, anyway. So I am basically the point person for the client and the designers. After our clients sign off on our proposal, I'm who you see basically every day. My job from the client side is to update with progress through our shop, starting from shop drawings and then into progress photos as things move along. We do shop visits with clients. So, you know, nobody from our shop side is hidden behind the scenes by any stretch. But so those kids don't get inundated by questions nonstop, I'm the person that you ask. I also do the project oversight. So as we move through, I keep track of budgeting and scheduling and work with Justin every day about getting, you know, crew assigned to our jobs in order to meet those deadlines. I also do the technical drafting and assistant design. So it's a little bit weird to kind of double dip sometimes from project management into drafting, but it creates a really streamlined workflow into our shop. It also makes sure that I'm communicating well the design parameters. So things like weight, size, you know, door openings. Does this thing need to move? Is it permanent? Is it fixed? All of these things are things that we consider from the very beginning. And the last thing is that you know, since I am the point person, I have to wear a bunch of different hats. Currently, I'm running 6 different jobs with 6 different clients, so it's very exciting. And I, you know, just before this meeting, talked to the creative manager for a luxury retail company, the general contractor and designer for a forest preserve installation, and a retired Navy commander. So bonkers, but all very fun.
I love that
That
she
is,
said bonkers.
yeah, that is super awesome. You know, being able to juggle that many like hats and different roles, meeting with clients and then also drafting and then running a team and then going through the contracts. It's really quite amazing. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
So I think,
Um,
yeah, next in that chain would be jumping over to fabrication. So often, you know, once a project manager gets everything pulled together, has all the resources in-house, has all the drawings put together, those get handed off to our project leads. And our project leads, you know, work with the team in the shop to actually bring the thing to life. And Nathan is one of those project leads, so I'll let him take it away from here. Like he is on that drum. Wow.
Yeah. Killing it, killing it. All right, so fabrication leads, at least in this system that has kind of grown over the past 10 years that I've been here, like in a sense, fabrication leads here act as an intermediary between the office and the shop floor. Both shop floor and office are very different ecosystems. I see them as very different ecosystems. So leads have the, you know, the talent, but also the task of coordinating, you know, office speak and shop floor speak, which can be very colorful at times, right? So job leads also have the task of driving a job, and that can mean a lot of things. That can mean, like, do we have the tools and resources to make 3,000 of one thing in a week? Kind of the nuts and bolts of how to move a job forward. I think also too, a holistic approach to being a job lead is you're modeling behavior that you want to see in your team, because ultimately if people can't look up to you to be productive and communicative, and you're not modeling that, ultimately I feel your team won't be successful. It's worked for me, and so that's also something I'm pretty passionate about. So leads have a lot of hats too. I'm not running 6 jobs, Mary, but I don't know how you do it. And I think that's part of the reason why our teams are so successful. We've put the right people in the right places, and that takes a long time to figure out. So, and it's trial and error. It's trial and error. So, over 10 years, we've built this ecosystem where Mary can do her thing, and we can talk shorthand to each other, and I can do my thing on the office floor. And in certain teams, in certain groups of this place, we've developed that shorthand, which allows like really the magic to happen. So I think I'm making sense. And job leads are an integral part of the puzzle. Everybody here is an integral part of the puzzle, and I'm very jazzed to be part of a scene shop as large as this. I've worked in considerably smaller, high-end, still very prestigious shops, but nothing really compares to this in that regard. In the organizational system, in terms of positions that we have today. It's really quite special. I don't think there's anything like it in Chicago or really Illinois or the US. So yay for that. I could go on and on, but I'll kick it to somebody else, and I'm happy to hear what they have to offer.
So I think next we have up is Rosie, right?
Hey, yeah. So, I'm a scenic paint lead or scenic art lead, and what we kind of do is talk a lot with folks like Mary and Nathan and everybody to get the project going. And yeah, to start out, it starts with sampling, and that's really important because it gives me an opportunity to talk to the project lead and figure out like all of our finishes and all of the choices we make are based on what the client wants to see out of their project, and like how long it's got to last and how many things we have to do for it and how much time we have and what the budget is. And all of those go into our initial creative process. And so then I would go to Mary, talk about that, go away, make a bunch of samples for the client to see. And then she sends the samples off, or the client comes in and looks at them on site. And then, yeah, we sort of work down what the final project's gonna, or the final product is gonna look like based on that feedback. And then once we actually have the job and we have everything approved, then it's really a matter of talking with the other leads and talking with the other people on the floor. And our fabrication and finishing process is so intertwined. And we, like, my day never looks the same and never can be planned more than a morning out, basically, because if something gets stuck in the building end of things, then we pivot and we change what we're doing. And sometimes we have to finish something so that fabrication can go and work on it and bring it back to us. So yeah, it's a lot of communicating with people, and it's a lot of talking and back and forth. And that's what I really like about this team and this job, is how much collaboration and working with people and doing all of that there is.
I think at its core, the thought just came to me, sorry to interrupt, Rosie, at its core, leads are responsible for not only getting the project from A to B physically, they're responsible for defining what B is. What is the endpoint? What's the goal? Ultimately, the entire team is, but it's our responsibility to ask questions, to kind of judge the project so that we can get there. What's really interesting about some of these slides that we showed is I have a memory from each of those builds, which were particular challenges. So for instance, like this helicopter was built for the Cantini War Museum, I think. Yeah, it's in Wheaton, I think. And this had to be broken up and carried into an active job site with no road. So we ended up figuring that out. And other things, there was a slide previously that had a beautiful compass rose in it. And that's at a space in Boston. The Corian map that's in the background that weighed 2,800 pounds. So how do you get that into the building? How do you lift it? How do you do all this stuff? So at its core, and which is why I'm so proud to be a lead with Rosie, is like, you're in it. You're going to get this thing from A to B. And it's really good to be supported in that endeavor by teammates like Mary and Justin. Because I think a lot of companies talk the talk, like we walk the walk. Like, I'm serious. But yeah, it's how to get from A to B. How do you do that? And often that's a negotiation. And that can be challenging at times, but I got plenty more to talk about that. I'm gonna let somebody else go.
Sure.
Really?
Rosie, anything back on finishing before we jump over to operations?
No, not really.
Cool. So I think one of the things that is part of the finishing process, but is not integrated into the art department, is printing, and that's one of the pieces of our kind of overall operation that finds its way in all kinds of places. We'll do direct to substrate printing that ends up as actual graphics, but is also part of textural backgrounds as well. So that's one of the things that we facilitate as part of our overall workflow here. And I know that from time to time, it turns into a really interesting challenge of doing touch-up work on printed pieces in the art department. And the hand matching work that Rosie and the team in the art department are capable of is truly incredible. Stepping back to kind of the operations view of all of this, is I'm going to introduce an idea now, which I will kind of touch on a couple more times, is what I call the agency economy. And I think the role of all of the management team here is really to work in service of the fabricators. We've got all of these people together who can solve all the problems in the world, and our job is to make sure they have the things they need to do that. So I look at that in the people who are here, the tooling that's available to them, the resources that we bring in and actually can use on jobs, and then finally the information that's available to folks. And exactly to Nathan's point, the leads are in it, and the leads are the ones who solve those problems in real time. So when you get to site and we realize that access road that you had relied on for delivery is gone now, it's the lead who pulls the helicopter off the truck and goes, we're going to cut here, and starts to figure it out. And it's making sure that folks can solve those problems, because ultimately the projects that we work on have never been solved before. There isn't a standing solution, but there is certainly a strong set of operations that we all know how to do. And with all of those combined, if you have the right tools, the right people, the right stuff, and the right information, you can get it done. So my job working with Mary and the project leads and all of our fabricators is just that, to make sure that everybody has the stuff they need to get the work done, and then get out of the way, and then be available to solve problems. So I think the operations slide that was up here just a minute ago shows some of those parts and pieces. You'll see, there's the materials and the workflow through the shop in the bottom right-hand corner there. We keep a lot of stuff around to make sure that we can tackle problems quickly, and particularly in light of COVID and some of the supply chain issues we've all experienced, we're certainly keeping more on hand than we used to. Above that is working on how to coordinate the dance of 60 people in the building and making sure that they all have the right time in the day to get the work done. I would love to clone our staff, just about every single person in here at least once, if not twice. But what we have is what we have, and we've got a really talented crew, and making sure that they're all in the right place at the right time is part of the work that I do. And then finally, you'll see there in the, I believe the GIF on the left is part of our prototyping process. And when we get into those critical operations where it's really important that everyone's at the table to collaborate, from the client to the fabricator to the designer and every single stakeholder, I will often get into those moments to help pull people together and be one of the people who's, in this case, actually hands-on involved.
Sorry. Lucy Creative. Oh, love them.
Oh,
And
our sisters.
yeah.
Hello, Lucy.
I was just on a call with AJ a little quick second ago.
Please tell me you showed off all your beautiful golden spike work.
I forced everyone I think that I know on this planet to see those. So
they're truly awesome.
Let me know. I will send them all to you. Thank you so much. I'm blushing now. So before we get progress, if anyone in the audience has any questions, please shoot them into the comment section, because we really want to use Ravenswood's time to the best of our ability and get those questions answered. So because I have 1.5 billion, but I am one person. So
well, I mean, fire away if you've got something. We don't have to jump to, you know, the next thing on the roll here. What do you got?
Well, okay, so I know that all of y'all have talked about the amazing collaboration that happens. How, like, was there a conscious decision at some point in these 30 years to, like, okay, let's make this more collaborative, or was it just like that from the get-go? Like, how does one foster this sense of teamwork?
Go, Mary, go.
So in every meeting, I basically assume that I'm the dumbest person there, and I'm never going to pretend that Rosie, you know, knows less about painting than I do, or that I can tell Nathan how to weld stuff. So it is collaborative by necessity, and then also luckily collaborative by fun. But I'm to be the sponge, and we all learn from each other, like, you know, all the time, every day. So, you know, it's a group effort.
I think at its core, nothing, I've heard the phrase like nothing great is ever achieved by one person. And oftentimes I think there's a mentality that you have to know everything, especially in the trades, because you want to be the best. You want to be the most talented, the coolest, the best beard. I don't know, like but as soon as you let that go, it's really empowering. I'm telling you. I think because you don't have to know everything. You just have to put people in the right places. And that's where true teamwork comes in, because there's not competition. I ran the metal shop here for about 10 years. And in that time, we started a process which just kind of became consults. Like we opened up the door for gruff metal workers to be like, hey, I don't know this. Can I pick your brain, please? Have you ever run into this before? And that's a cultural change that is developed over time. But at the end of the day, it takes a lot of grit, takes a lot of determination to enact those changes, because they don't happen overnight, you know? And, but they're really important if you want your company to grow.
So to jump on that, I think that, like, that is a really cool thing about Ravenswood, is that, like, first of all, there's a lot of trust, and, like, I really trust all of my coworkers and everyone on the floor. Like, I trust their talent and their abilities, and that makes it really easy to collaborate with them because I am like Mary, and I assume that, like, if there's a problem, I know somebody on the floor has run into it, and I can go and brainstorm with everybody. And everyone here is really open with like their talents and their time, and nobody like tries to hoard their knowledge. And I think that's huge, and that's a really cool thing. And so, yeah, it's really putting your ego aside and helping. And a big thing that Ravenswood does, or that I've seen here, is that, like, there's not, if you make a mistake, there isn't punishment. And I think that's great because it gives you space to learn and grow. And like the reaction to, oh man, I messed this thing up, is always like, well, let's figure out how to fix it, instead of like trying to hide it or trying to pretend like you didn't.
I think one of the major hallmarks of success is the trail of failures that you don't see. And we are doing things for the first time. I know I mentioned it earlier. We're applying things that we know how to do, but we're often in situations that are completely novel. And we're doing our best to, find a solution that gets us there and respects the client's wishes and respects the time and talent of the people involved. And in that, there are mistakes. I mean, I make several a day. And I know that that's one of the things that we just lean into versus you can get angry about all day long. But I think coming at it with like a beginner's mindset, I think that's the kind of the buzz term right now around that. I don't know anything, ask all the questions, really helps us. So every challenge that gets set in front of us, unless we actually know the solution, we start to just ask questions, and we get the right people, group of people pulled together. I think one of the most recent successful collaborations we had, kind of at the scale that Nathan and Mary were very directly involved in, was some wayfinding signs for a zoo. And they were lion shaped. And we had a really wonderful relationship with this client where they just asked us, hey, what do you think? And it was one of those really cool open RFPs. And I pulled Nathan in and I said, hey, what do you think? And we came up with a solution and we pitched it. And the client said no. And they said, we don't like that. We don't trust this material. We're not familiar with that. I don't know if that solution's the best. And the coolest thing about this client is when I said, hey, can we have 3 minutes? And can you grab your facilities manager? I think we should just all talk real quick. Nathan sold it. And Nathan just talked with his facilities manager who had really nuts and bolts questions about how do I take care of this thing? And what happens if it breaks? And what's our solution for this? And what's our fix for that? And that's a perfect encapsulation of that, where we want the client to come with us all the way through the project and not just say, all right, here's some signs, build them. And I think the willingness of that client to ask the questions and the willingness of me to ask Nathan and the willingness for Mary to ask all of us, because she ended up having to get this thing across the finish line, really got us to a really, really amazing project.
We recently had a project that we put many thousands of dollars of Corian on our CNC router and tried a wall sculpture for the first time, never have done it, and it broke and our hearts dropped. We had a tiny meeting, regrouped, spent many thousands of dollars again and gave it another go. Little changes this time, and it worked. And we felt great. And unless you're used to making Corian wall sculptures, what are you going to do but mess up and go again? We work in a really great place where we can make some of those big mistakes and still roll with it.
And I think one of the things that folks are really interested in here is kind of some of our major learnings and some of the advice that we might have. I know that, out of that, we can give all kinds of advice on how you should create a substrate that actually holds up the Corian underneath before you start routing it, and some places where you might strategically put seams. But I think each of us probably has an individual story or something that's, I don't know, really stands out for all of us. And it's in that land of I don't know, stuff you wish you knew sooner. Kelly, do you have a good framing question for us to tackle that, or a way you want us to go with that?
Sure. Okay. So what we typically um or what I would typically ask is like, are there things, um is there something specific that you've learned recently or even like at the start of your career that you're like, oh, I'm glad I know that now. I wish I would have learned it sooner.
Hmm. I'm just gonna throw Rosie out there. Let's go.
Oh,
Yes. I, yeah. So things I wish I knew known sooner. I think that a huge thing is just to like everything we do or like we can do as a group is so much cooler than anything I can do by myself. And so that's huge. Is like it's fun to work with other people. And I think also like it's good to trust yourself, and trust that you can work it out and you can make it happen. And I think that advice for my young self is something that a lot of artists struggle with and a lot of young people struggle with is advocating for themselves and sort of like the art of negotiation. And I am not a good business person. And that was hard for me, was trying to figure out like negotiating salary and what is my worth as an artist and a maker and a crafter. And I think that's really important to teach our young people to talk about and think about.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
is truly important. I mean, as an artist, it's figuring out your worth. I mean, me starting off in the industry back when ever that was, that was definitely one of those key things that I feel like not many people talk about. So I'm super excited that you brought that up. So who do we have next? Justin, what are
Oh,
your what
Pearls of
sort of
wisdom.
information do you want to impart?
I think it goes back to anyone who's an aspiring manager is to really look at it from the lens of it being a service economy, and being a service industry in its own right. It really, at the end of the day, what you're moving around and the decisions that you're making are honestly not that different from waiting tables. You've got, table three needs, all other beverages refilled. And in that case means I got to go make sure that we're buying staples and making sure that there's staples in the building, so that when the fabricators get around to putting something together, they can do it. You got to know that, table 7 has a peanut allergy, and, that in this case is a really budget conscious client who wants to be involved at every decision, and anything that's going to impact their bottom line, they want a phone call for. So it's really looking at it from the lens of what can I do in service of all of these people around me? Because at the end of the day, I can push paper around and nothing happens. It's really the people who are on the other end of that we're serving, we're making sure that we're consulting, and we ultimately are doing the work here in the building.
That's awesome. Okay. Nathan, do you want to?
So I'm at a point in my career where I finally think I know what I'm doing, right? So
I'm
that's
so jealous.
awesome. Only took 20 years slogging it out. But that's real. And I think the words aptitude and attitude come to mind, right? So Justin's heard me say this before. What I wish I had known earlier in my career is I think a lot of us are hypercritical of ourselves a lot. And I think that acts as a barrier to entry for learning to weld or learning to make furniture or whatever, but you need to start where you start. And you approach it from a lens of attitude and aptitude. If you don't have the aptitude, come with the right attitude. If you have the aptitude, you better come with the right attitude, because people need to be able to work with you. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I tried to teach when I was supervising talent development here was that, you know, it was the simplest thing, but it was career transforming for me. Because as we were pulling the right people in, that's what I was judging people on. I didn't care if the resume you submitted was really small. If you had the right attitude, I was willing to teach you, you know, and vice versa. If you had the aptitude and not the attitude, I'm sorry, there, with love and respect, there might not be a place in the ecosystem that we're building here. So circling way back is, these are just bigger building blocks, right? Mm-hmm. So as a kid, I was playing with building blocks, and now we're just doing it bigger, something bigger. And it's interesting because I think there's a lot of mystery about the trades. And I think people, you know, I can only speak to welding. It's what I've been doubling down on for a long time. Just start, find a maker space, find a mentor. And I promise you, if you approach it with the right attitude, not a positive, obviously a positive attitude, but if you want to go talk to tradesmen, go talk to tradespeople, go do that, and you'll be successful. And you slog it out, and you combine those two things, and you'll be unstoppable. I promise you. It might take some time, right? Getting torch time in takes time. It's time on the torch to learn how to do the skill well. But there's more to flesh out there. But yeah, it's attitude and aptitude. That's all it is. That's in my mind. And I get jazzed about it. But yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, peeps?
I think so. Mary's like, yes. Oh man. Okay, Kathy. Is there anything that you would like? Wait, did we got everyone right? Did I completely blank? Oh my God, Mary.
She's got some wisdom.
Mary, go! Oh my God.
No wisdom for us. Don't skip over that.
Dropping some life advice. So mine is a little bit like Nathan's, where attitude is everything. Optimism and energy are infectious. You know, that kind of thing sets the tone for a job with clients and with crew. And if you start things off in a grump-a-dump way, well, that's how it's going to stay, right? But if you go in feeling like you can do it and you're going to learn a lot and it's going to be fun, and, you know, not every job, you know, feeds your creative soul, but there's always something in everything that you can, you know, find enjoyment from. So even if it's just working with your friends all night on a project, you've done it with your friends. So that's cool. Also, the biggest part of success is showing up. So that's kind of what Rosie said, you know, like, you can't win if you don't play. So that's the biggest thing. Come to work, punch in, you know, do the thing. It might not be your favorite, but let's go. Let's finish. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That is so, so true. So I know that every last one of you has come into the industry in multiple different paths, whether or not it was from television, from theater, from everywhere, honestly. But what sort of advice would you give to someone if they're looking into breaking into the field next? You know, whether or not they're coming from television, if they're coming from, I don't know, even if they are coming from like engineering or something like that. What sort of advice would you give them if they want to come into, you know, fabrication, if they want to come into themed entertainment? You can choose whichever direction you want to go with that question.
Sure.
Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to grab it and tee it up, and I think I'm going to throw it to Nathan because it dovetails really well with the conversation we've been recently having.
Go for it.
Um, but I think thinking about any field as a linear approach is really, really dangerous. I think thinking with just razor, edge precision, I'm going to do this and that's it, and that's what defines everything you're trying to do, works very rarely. But the thing that I find works a lot goes again back to that beginner's mindset of like, I need to solve the question of what makes my brain really happy. And for me, I thought it was hiding behind, the title doctor. I thought that working in the hard sciences or in medicine might be the answer, but it wasn't. The thing that I found that I love is people and getting people together to solve problems, getting people together to just, dance in a mosh pit is awesome. And that's what I really want to do. And so how do I align myself with that? And again, it came down to people. So every turn in my career is marked by an individual. Curtis Mortimer was the undergrad TD who said, hey, this might be a thing you want to check out, and has become a lifelong friend. And it's those friendships and it's those people. And someone pulled me aside at one point and said, every single person you see in this room is valuable. And this was in an undergrad theater class. They're like, they're either going to hire you, they're going to fire you, or they're going to be the connection to the next thing in your life. And I think that's just been incredibly true. So the flexibility and the relationships have ultimately get you to a place that isn't necessarily how do you break into themed entertainment, but how do you do what you want to do? And I think that's where I want to throw it Hollywood Square style up to Nathan, and see if you want to add anything more to that.
Yes. Okay. So I think ultimately that's a pretty complex problem. But what about shifting careers? There's money involved. There's family involved. There's all this stuff. So you have to figure out if you like doing it every day first. So soft approach first. Join a makerspace. See if you like beating your hands up every day, kind of thing. Like dip your toe in the water. I'm generally a pretty conservative person. I think about things a lot, so that's how I would approach it. And then baby steps. There's constant baby steps and self-assessments and identifying opportunities in the marketplace where you could start is important. I think if you get stuck at the beginning, that's tough. I realize that's really tough, but this is an industry where we solve problems all day, every day, and you have to get through that first problem. There is no blueprint. I think everybody's looking at Instagram and Facebook for everybody else's blueprint about how to succeed. And that's awesome. It can give you clues. But at the end of the day, when you wake up and your feet hit the floor, your blueprint is your own. It's your own. You're going to have to figure that stuff out. You're going to have to identify your talents and your entanglements. And ultimately, the onus is on you to drive your life, if that makes any sense. And there's power in that. There's power in that. So don't let the barrier to entry be yourself is what I'm getting at, okay? Don't let it be you. It could be any other thing, but just don't let it be you. That's it. That's it.
I love that so much. Rosie, do you have any knowledge to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think what these guys are saying, I think it's a hard industry, like physically hard on your body, and just you're on your feet all the time. You're using your hands, you're using your body, you're gonna hurt your back, you're gonna hurt your knees. So yeah, I think to Nate's point, you have to know that that's what you're giving into it. And so there's that. I think that actually kind of an awesome way to start making connections is on social media. And you can do, like, I don't know, over the stay-at-home orders in the beginning of the pandemic, I was just finding all of these artists on Instagram who we were like, they were maybe muralists in Chicago, and we were chatting, and I felt like I was really making connections with people and just seeing, I don't know, there's so much access to people, and everybody likes to answer questions, and everybody likes to chat, and so that's a great resource. And then, yeah, just putting yourself out there. Exactly what you were saying, Nate. Like, go do the thing, work with your hands. Don't be afraid to send a resume that is, I built these things in my garage, or I'm interested in learning how to build things. Because chances are, if you're like really excited about it and you have just a little bit of talent, and you're willing to work really hard, that kind of takes you far. Yeah. It's my 2 cents.
Y'all are speaking to my soul right now. I feel like I've had so many conversations over the last, like, obviously 2 years, but leading up to that, it was almost like an echo chamber where someone would ask the question and then the other person would come in and be like, I had the same question, and they would just kind of commiserate with each other instead of trying to find someone to help them figure out the answer. And it feels like that's kind of human nature, where we just want to, like, dump and not actually figure it out. But this is super exciting.
I mean, I would say that my career, frankly, only makes sense looking backwards. If you walk back in the timeline and look forwards, you'd be like, how did you, wait, what happened? I don't understand what happened at this moment. And it's often those kind of like indescribable moments. It's the absolute circumstance that you're just like, if your head's on a swivel, you know what you're looking for, you know what really like lights you up. You just see a little glimmer of that somewhere, and you have to look again and chase it. And it's worth chasing. And it might not lead you down the path you expect at all.
Yeah. So now I guess here's my next question. Chasing those glimmers, looking for that, like, common thread, how would you go about, like, revert back to brand new baby in the industry you? How would you go about reaching out to people, or like making those connections with, like,
Mary, can you tackle this one?
Well, yeah, I guess here's what's interesting is, there are the usual ways where you can go to like networking events and get your little badge and have a cocktail or something. But also you can go as a visitor and discover it that way. So for example, we built a really awesome opera set, and I had never been to the opera before. So I went with my dad, and I was mentioning like how neat it was to build it, and like, ooh, just wait for this one thing to happen. And then people heard me talking during intermission and started turning around their seats and were like, you built that? That is so cool. I know somebody who does this other thing, and then a neighbor became a client of ours because she saw me, dragging weird stuff home out of my garage. So it's fate sometimes, honestly. But networking events, those are fun too. Free drinks, right?
I mean, I think it would be unfortunate to underplay the role of luck. I mean, frankly, luck is a huge piece of this. But I think exposure is how you increase your available luck. To Nathan's point of, being out there and just doing it. If you wait for the perfect opportunity, you will stand at the train station forever. If you jump on the train that looks like it might be heading kind of in the direction you're going, you'll probably get there.
Oh, I like that.
Can I throw something in too? Like, I want to also highlight the importance of trade school. That's something that I think gets skipped over a lot in our culture when we talk about like going to college and going to getting your further education. Trade school is awesome, and it's a lower time commitment way to like learn a skill set, oftentimes, because it's often 2 years. And so learn a skill set, figure out if you like it. I don't know. It's not something that was even on my radar when I was 17 or 18 looking at schools. And I wish that that was something more people talked about.
Yeah. Caitlin said in our chat, trade school is so underrated. I have many things.
Underrated, underfunded. Let's throw some
Yeah.
more money back at the dignity of work, please.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's a whole nother thing that I get prickly. But I think, so I'm not really on social media. I did run a furniture shop for a while, and I I had like 4 people walk into the building and say, take me on as your apprentice. And I had no need or want to be a guru at the time. Like, I was just trying to run this, whatever it was at the time. That was my second job. So I had a full-time job, and then I had a 20 to 30 hour gig on top of that. Because I wanted to be in it, you know? But I think what I'm driving at is when you're trying, hot tips, right? So when you're trying to communicate to a tradesperson, come with something, right? So more often than not, I feel people want to be given the answers. They want to be given the blueprint. But what can set you apart when you're just doing cold calls or DMing people or reaching out on Facebook is what I tell people back in metals is like, please don't come to me with the problem, come to me with 2 solutions. This is something I've been saying for 20 years. And if you approach it that way, you could say, hey, these welds look really good. How long did it take you to get there? I'm having a problem finding access to TIG resources. Could you do that? Could you get me that information? Or you have to come with something. You can't, if you come with the expectation of being given the answers, I think that's kind of off-putting, especially for people that are maybe overwhelmed. There's a lot going on in the world, right now. So I think people are looking for connection, but the hot tip that I would give is you should be like paying attention to how you try to communicate to people. I would much rather have like 3 thoughtful conversations with people than 30 that are just kind of like not engaging. So I think there's something there. I think you just have to be very specific in how you ask for information.
And don't just ask for a job. I've legitimately had people ask me, should I just ask for a job? I'm like, why would you do that? Like, are you trying to just get a job, or are you trying to foster relationships with people? Because just getting a job, there are tons of those that exist out there. You can get those without talking to almost anyone.
And it's a skill that will make you successful down the line. So why not start now? Why not start practicing with strangers? Ultimately, the people in my time in Chicago that have been most successful are the people that communicate most effectively. Mm-hmm. And so that's another soft skill that I think is not stressed enough with builders. I think good foremans have it. I think good superintendents have it. But it's something that needs to be looked at if you want to be well-rounded. The people that have risen to the top of the industry in my time here, they've either had it or they've taken the time to address their entanglements. So now that they can communicate to different types of people. It's something that's kind of been opening up is more work with clients. Justin's brought me into the fold there, Mary as well. And I think we're starting to see like a cool shift in my career because I worked on that. You know, you learn from the mistakes and how did I lose this bid because I didn't explain something well, or I came off as combative when a customer asked a real question or had concerns. So learning to educate your clients is important too. But what it comes down to is communication and constantly assessing that, whatever that means to you. Everybody is different. But if you can communicate effectively, you can learn to weld. You can learn to use a table saw. You can learn to build. You can know what plumb, level, square, perpendicular, coplanar are. Those are teachable things, very concrete, teachable things. But if you layer self-assessment and self-growth on that, I promise you, you'll see the arc of your career go like this, because not everybody's doing that. And that's an easy way to set yourself apart.
I don't bump. Where's your drum when you need it? Okay.
I know that, you know, we're in the market of giving advice here through this forum, and Nathan, I think that's a lot of tremendous stuff for folks who are looking at the field or looking at, you know, adjacent fields. But one of the other things that we often hear is like kind of from an outside perspective of like, how do I engage your services? Like I have some idea that I need custom fabrication. I have some idea that I've got this crazy thing that I'd love to see in reality. I'm actually kind of curious from my own perspective here. Between, you know, Mary, Rosie, Nathan, the three of you, what advice would we give clients? Like, is there something that you wish you could just tell every single person who walks through the door, or certain people who walk through the door?
I got thoughts. I have thoughts, Mary. All right. So at its core, I think successful project manager, what we want the client to know is that we're on the same team, right? We're here to guide you. We're here to educate you. We're here to calm any fears. You know, we're here to budget for you. We're here to do all these things for you. We are here for you. And if you start with that from the get-go, I think you could be very successful. I think ultimately Mary she's a gem. She's a gem. If you can work with Mary, you should do it. Because not only can you get your build done and done well, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Mary and I were talking the other day about we really enjoy our jobs and it's fun. Doesn't mean it's not stressful. I wake up at 3 a.m. with design solutions all the time. It stinks. It stinks. But you can have fun with the stress too, right, Mary? We were talking about that. I think, and why not? Let's make something cool. Let's have fun while we're doing it. And it's a really interesting, unique process. Mary, do you have anything about having fun at work? Like, is that
I hate it. It's the worst. Food of fun. No, that's the best part. You know, so Nathan and Rosie and I are all working closely together right now on a modular children's museum exhibit. 20 different exhibits going to 20 different museums eventually. It's very exciting. We're doing a ton of prototyping for this thing because basically our debut is 4 months from now. So that's why Nathan was playing the drums. And we've never had more fun at work, I don't think, than on this particular job. You know, we're basically being toy makers, which is wild. But, you know, with certain design parameters. So these toys have to withstand kids and lots of them. The lifespan is at least 5 years. The budget for this job is coming from a grant, and we take that extremely seriously. There's a lot of weight that comes with that, at least to me. So the problem solving, I think, is just as fun as the playing. We're learning a lot, and we had to Google how to play a taiko drum in order to build a taiko drum. So every day is fun and collaborative, and what more could you want, honestly?
I mean, I really wanted to stab that drum with my keys. I almost did. I almost got it.
But you didn't. So we
But I
win.
didn't. I didn't because we made some really keen material choices, and it's very challenging to pierce that drum with a set of keys.
Oh my God, I really hope that no one takes that as a challenge. Anyone listening, that is not a challenge. Let
If you see
children
this
have their
drum,
fun.
please do not.
Let those children have their fun without your keys involved. Sorry. Okay.
Well, that's kind of jumping into the what I wish clients knew is like, I wish more clients were like this client, and I wish they knew what an awesome resource they have in the people on the shop floor. And chances are, whatever problem you've run into, somebody in this shop has seen something like it, or fix something like it, or run into something and has at least the start of a solution. And so I feel like those are always the most effective client interactions, are when they come to us and want to collaborate with us. Yeah.
And that goes back to being on the same team, right? That's it. At the end of the day, if is simpatico the right term? Simpatico with your client, that's pretty cool. I think that's important to chase. I really do. And I think that's where we put our best foot forward. We lead with that. And ultimately that's helping our success here and changing the way we work. And I'm really jazzed to be a part of it. And I'm not sure if this relates to clients. So no, it does. It's okay to not know what you want. That's okay. Just like if you're starting out in this field, it's okay to feel like you suck. That's fine. Sit with it. That's okay. That's okay, right? And I think the more people come to terms with that, the more successful they'll be, whether it's in their client interactions or any endeavor, really. It's okay to not know, but ask, because we're here for you. I promise you, we'll have the answers for you. I promise you. The talent pool in this building is pretty rad. It's pretty rad. And that in itself is magic. Like, I nerd out about that. So I think, yeah, I'm not sure how I can spin this, but yeah, it's okay to not know where you're going, but still get something done. It's okay to not know where your project is going, but ask for help from us or all that stuff. So a little bit of a tangent, but something relevant there. Seriously, it's an honor. It really is. I've been doing this 20 years, slogging it out for 20 years. And I feel like I'm at a really high point, and I want to honor that. And mark it, really. Like, that's cool as hell. That's cool as hell. And I can't wait. I hope it gets better from here. It can't get better from here, but I hope it does. Like, come on, people. Come on, people.
That's awesome. Okay, so we only have a few more minutes left. If anybody has any questions, be sure to comment, and we will try and take as many as we can before the end of the show. My question is, you guys get to work on some like really awesome things. I can't even imagine having to go through and design a drum that has to last for 5 years, um, which is super awesome. And being able to go and design all sorts of toys day in, day out, and then going through the design work of that so that it can be modular as well. But what about your favorite projects? I mean, I understand that there may not be some projects that you are able to discuss, but those that you can, what has your favorite project been? Um, let's see, who am I going to pick first?
Rosie. Go, Rosie. Go,
Rosie.
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 Okay. Well, we kind of talked about this recently because it popped up on somebody's memories on Facebook. But a while back now, I got to build a giant, or we got to build a giant goat head made out of shoes for Merrill Shoe Company. And they basically had a print ad that was photoshopped silhouette of a goat's head made of these new climbing boots that they wanted to sell. And they were like, can you make this in 3D? And here's 70 pairs of boots and a bunch of raw materials from our factory, and go for it. And so that was awesome. I got to spend 3 weeks in a room just putting boots together and trying to figure it out, and cutting shoes apart, and hodgepodging stuff into the back to make it structural. And I think that was definitely one of my favorite projects, was sculpting that goat's head.
A goat's head shoe sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
That is so awesome. I can't even imagine just being approached. It's like, okay, can you make this sculpture out of shoes? It has to look like a goat. And that's amazing. All right, so who's next in their favorite project?
Go, Mary, go.
Mary, yeah.
What if it's the
You
one
have
that
so
I'm
many
doing
projects.
right now? What if it's the one right now? Yeah, I mean, I've got weird fake fish on my desk and sushi and musical instruments, and I get to work with my really good friends. And I know that when this project is finished, that I'm going to stand at the dock door and like wave and wish it well, and it's going to be the best thing ever. I don't know. Do I get amnesia every time I finish a job? I don't know. I feel like everybody on the team for this current job is just like in it together. The clients and the designers are lovely, and everybody's giving us space to experiment. Oh, I think that is precious and pretty rare. Yeah. The one right now.
Cool.
Super awesome. Okay, so who's next? Come on.
I mean, I'll tee up the one I talked about earlier, and it was the collaboration with Nathan. So that we came up with these lions for the zoo, and just from the relationship with the client and what we got to do in terms of leaning into our expertise and feeling really good about the solution we provided, and then solving some really weird challenges. Like they wanted a tactile cat tongue that you could like touch and feel the hooks that are on a cat's tongue, and a lion is really just a giant cat, and it has bigger hooks on its tongue. And coming up with different ways of doing that, and seeing some of the solutions that Nathan and his team tried out in the metal shop, actually feeling those and then putting them through user testing and putting them through all kinds of levels of abuse, and finding out that we could make this thing that was really awesome was cool. And I think the thing that looped to like a personal thing for me was I had just recently been to this zoo, and I had just recently looked at some of the other types of signage that they had that were in the same shapes as the animals that they were near enclosure wise. And I was kind of disappointed because I knew what our team was capable of, and looking around at this place, I was like, oh man, these could have been made so much cooler. And then not 6 weeks later, that opportunity walked through the door, and being able to take something that I'd seen in the world, work with a really cool team to like offer an amazing solution, and then see it come to reality. And I tell you what, you go check out those lions. They are way cooler than the initial sketches that Nathan and I had down. And that evolution is exactly what I've been talking about, of like bringing people together to solve something, to create something that people come back together around later. These signs are like out in front of the lion house. They're designed for, you know, an 8-month-old to an 80-year-old to engage and have a great time with. And they're really cool.
All right. Nathan, your last up.
All right, here we go. Awesome. So thank you, Justin. That was awesome. That was great. There's one particular item that stands out for me as one of my favorite projects. I have many, but it was a particularly challenging thing for a museum we built 5 or 6 years ago. It was a war museum where I had to figure out how to get a 3,600-pound chunk of the Berlin Wall into a finished space and rigged and whatever. So nothing to it but to do it, right? So weighs more than a truck. And normally that's why working with designers is so good, because they're like, this is what we want. And you have to be like, okay. And then you go home and you cry, and you have a drink, and then you get back to it. But that was really fun to overcome, because most museums will put a chunk this big in, you know, and they'll build it into Scenic walls. If you guys are able to make it to this venue, I'm bad with names. The names escape me. We're on job like 5,600 here, and I'm like, I can't. This thing was 13.5 feet tall and weighed 3,600 pounds, something like that. So to overcome that challenge, oh, and no access road. That was the same challenge. That was the venue with no access road. So that was really fun to do. To overcome that, to be in the muck, there's a better word for that, but in the muck with your team, and then to come out on the other side of that was a highlight of my career. And it was like, oh, we can do this. We just have to talk it out and rely on a rigging expert that we had in our group. Great, you know how to do that. So yeah, it was that, and went really smoothly, and there wasn't a lot of cursing, and it was like a great challenge to overcome, and brought the team together, and that was really rewarding, which is ultimately why it's one of my favorite memories. And it's quite a sight to see. It's quite a sight to see when you see it in person, knowing that we had that shipped over from Europe in a container and had to rent a crane to get it off the truck, you know, and like step 1. Rent a crane. Step 2, you know, you break it down anyway. So yeah, that was my favorite. Was the Berlin Wall at the canteen.
And for anybody who wants to go check it out, I think it's the First Division Museum.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
That's really exciting. Okay, I have a question, and barring any like amazing nuggets that may pop up, this might be our last question. So if any audience members have a question, now is the time. Like, there are no more. With so many of your exhibits and experiences being tactile, living in the world we live in, in the before times, I'm sure this was somewhat of an issue, but now that we live in post or kind of still in the pandemic times, how has COVID-19 changed the way you design, you know, the company atmosphere, or, you know, how do you see it affecting the industry as we, you know, try to move forward? I know it's really heavy. I'm sorry.
I'll tee it off with a super softball answer. It's been, I mean, obviously a pandemic is brutal, but from kind of that ethos of wanting to be bringing people together and around things, it's awful. It's there's no way around it. It's challenging to work together in teams. It's challenging to all be in the same room and not be stressed out on top of whatever problem you're trying to solve, but now you're worried about, am I going to get this person sick? Am I the vector? What's happening? There's all of these precautions that are affecting the way we build things. There's supply chain issues. I mean, you just go on and on and on, and the list is just, you can't deny the effect on an industry that's built exclusively to gather. And it hurts. But I think what's really kind of charming, rather than looking at the devastation of it, is that what we've seen is a sustained demand. We still see people building things to bring people together. The designs might change, the materials might change, the cleaning protocols change. You might not have a touch screen anymore where you did before. You might have to hire a docent to wipe down the surface every time somebody walks by. There might be only one person in a gallery designed for 10. Whatever those changes might be, our human intent to gather and our human intent to gather around really compelling objects and experiences that allow us to mark time, to celebrate, to mourn, to honor, to respect, to study, those still exist, and that drive is not something that COVID's been able to touch. I think that, to me, is the really compelling thing that's come out all of this. If ever we needed a test of humanity and our willingness to get together, tell us to not get together and see what happens.
Literally, you could have said we all have to get together, and everyone 2 years ago I don't know. Now we're don't get together. Oh, we're getting together.
We're gonna solve it. It's a problem. Yeah. It's a problem to solve, and we're creative people. Let's do it.
Exactly. Rosie, do you have any?
Yeah. I mean, what Justin said, it sucked. And I had everyone was having a really hard moment right when everything shut down, of just going home and realizing that all of my experience, everything I do, everything I know how to do and that I'm good at is with my hands and in person. And I'm a disaster at computers, and I would be no good in an office. And that was really hard to sit with that and just realize I've built my entire career on people being together, me being in a space with other people so I can build things for people. And yeah, it was hard, and it continues to be hard. And I feel extremely lucky that the company I work for was able to pivot and do more. We lost out on, we don't really do a lot of theater anymore. But we were able to do experiences, and we were able to do these longer term projects like museums. And we were able to come back to it and all get back to work with our masks on and the cleaning protocols. And I feel lucky, really lucky with that.
Aw, gosh, how much do we love Rachel? Love her. Sorry.
She's pretty good, people. What do you think?
All right, Mary.
I have a but to the COVID conversation, and that is that necessity breeds invention, right? So, one, Zoom rules as far as this, obviously, but also, a lot of our clients are not local, and it becomes, it's been really hard in the past to do things like real-time feedback and quick conversations about how our projects are going. But with Zoom and other platforms, it becomes really easy to have those conversations. And so, that didn't really happen before COVID. So that's kind of an opportunity, I think. Besides the fact that when things did shut down, a lot of museums and theaters and places took the opportunity to do some of those improvements that they had been postponing. And so, for better or for worse, we were able to keep working and put in some really exciting museum exhibits when things were shut down. So it was isolating and pretty emotionally terrible, but we were lucky to keep working.
That's so exciting. Like, and I say exciting, not meaning like, man, this COVID's, have you heard of it? It's great, right? But like the way that creatives and creative problem solvers have figured out how to get around it, and still be productive and not productive in a like we have deadlines to meet productive, but like creatively productive, and collaborative is just it's very inspiring. Nathan, I don't know if you want to answer this or if
I'll keep it brief. COVID was terrible. 2 years out, I can say COVID was strikes and gutters, is what I say. The highs there were lots of opportunities and high was high, but the lows were super low. And I think that we all grew as people, but it definitely did affect a lot of the people. I'm very connected to the people and energies on the shop floor, and it was the hardest thing to see a very talented group of people who, like I said, feel compelled to work with their hands every day, not be able to do that. That was heartbreaking. So I hope we never have to go through something like that again. It was the hardest thing that I've seen in 20 years, and it was bizarre, and it was effed up. And the thing is that we were all on the same team, right? We all hadn't dealt with that before. But it's the low side of being on the same team. It's the low side of that. So we're all going through it together. But that first year was just, that was bad.
It's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough, but I think, in the same way that the industry's rolled on, in the same way that people still want to get together, all of us found different ways of getting through. And with creative people and capable people, you have incredible talent and incredible curiosity. I think one of the things that is really captivating is some people, had this real need to create and build or explore. Some people, dove into reading. Some people learned how to, make whips like in Indiana Jones, and learned how to make them and use them and do something with them. And some people did just their damnedest to get through. And there's a whole range of that. I am curious if there's something amongst this group, with, vivacious creative personalities. Like, I know, Mary, you were working on a Kindle on a Yahtzee box, drafting amazing scenery. But you also did like incredible work around your house. Is there any of that like fun survival side of all of this we want to share?
Oh, during COVID, especially when we were staying at home, it didn't matter what job it was, whether it was gutting my bathroom and putting that together, which is real, or doing the dishes, or experimenting making French toast out of pumpkin bread. Ooh. Outstanding. But after every one of those things, I would stand back and say, "There, that's an improvement." And that little phrase in itself gave me the biggest boost. So feels good. Try it out.
Now I want to try out pumpkin bread. That sounds awesome.
Delicious.
Rosie, did you pick up anything?
You know what? I had just bought a condo and moved like a couple months before the pandemic. And so I took that time to paint my entire condo. And that also included repainting the living room twice because I changed my mind on the color. But that was nice. I got to unpack and I got to paint and I got to fully settle in a way that I might not have had the time to do in that short amount. So yeah.
Cool. Nathan, I know you picked up some ukulele skills entertaining preschoolers.
Yeah. So my wife is an amazing pre-K and kindergarten music teacher at a school in downtown Chicago. And I learned how to do puppets, and we were making educational content online for these kiddos who needed us at the time. And she's a wonderful lesson planner, so we were learning about trust and all these things that I don't get exposed to on that level. And it was just fantastic to be a part of. And like, so it was, I hope we get to do it again under different circumstances. And yeah, it was interesting. We still have the puppets. They might make a comeback. I don't know. They were very popular. Yeah, that was fun.
Can we get a link?
I think we definitely need a link to one of these puppet shows.
They are pretty good. They are pretty good. Yeah, we made it through.
Good. And I'll tell you, you know, from my side of making it through, one of the things about management is you ultimately kind of walk away from doing things every day with your hands, other than kind of stereotypically shuffling papers around. But I got to really build out my home shop. I've always been a home hobbyist, a tinkerer, a maker, and it gave me a chance to like actually get all the tools out of the box that I hadn't done in a long time, and teach myself some new skills and really enjoy kind of the creative side of things. My family is now either enjoyed or tolerated DIY Christmas for 2 years running, and the reviews are positive, which I appreciate. We'll keep it there.
The reviews are positive. I love it. 3.5 stars, says my 4-year-old. Okay.
And I guess the spotlight's been all on Ravenswood here. Kicking it back to you all, Kathy, Kelly.
I survived.
What did I end up doing? Nothing as exciting as putting together like my own shop or doing a puppet show that I could record. But I became a Scrum Master. I got certified as a Scrum Master. So
she's
that's
agile
what I
now.
did.
What? Oh my gosh, Kathy. I graduated into the pandemic, and I figured out how to put my books on this bookshelf.
Did you go Dewey Decimal? Are you by author?
It is by topic.
Okay.
So it's a very rough Dewey Decimal System. If I have another second, I might actually arrange it in the Dewey style. So
the Bailey book system.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you have that? I do. 3 of them right here.
Cool. Is there anything else? I know we're over time, but I know we all love sharing stories here.
Well, I'm just every time I see you, Justin, I'm just always excited to just hear whatever you're up to, and I'm so glad to have met the 3 of y'all here for this. I just literally, and not in the like literally, but like I'm literally so jazzed to have had y'all on the show. And I know Kathy, I want to speak for her because she is amazing and can speak for herself, but I've missed this. So Kathy,
cool.
do you want to?
Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this as, the start of our first show of 2022. And, hopefully we keep this energy going. It was a very awesome conversation to have with you all. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Thank you guys for taking the time, hanging out. Everybody watching, thanks for hanging out and being curious. And I know they threw the website down there in the scroll. If you guys want to check out more of the work we're doing, it's there. And feel free to drop me an email. Happy to answer more questions.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Bye.